Welcome back to Equity in Motion, the podcast. I'm Jasmine, and today we're delving into the legal profession, a field that has long been seen as a stronghold of tradition, hierarchy, and patriarchy. But as more women and gender diverse professionals rise in the ranks, they're changing the face of law, advocating for both representation and justice. Today we're speaking with legal trailblazers about their journeys, the challenges they've faced, and their visions for the future. So let's get started. We'll have both Areezah and Neesha introduce themselves, and then we'll start to learn more about their journey and kind of some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that they had. So Areezah, if you want to start us off.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be a part of this next version of Equity in Motion, the podcast. So yes, my name is Areezah Jiwa. I am a lawyer here in Edmonton. I practice at the City of Edmonton itself. And I graduated in 2019. I'm trying to think of the fun things that people like to hear at the beginning of these intro speeches. So yeah, I graduated starting in 2018, got called to the bar in 2019. I did private practice for about 5 years. And then about a year and a half ago, I went to the City of Edmonton. I currently practice in their solicitor department, supporting their affordable housing and homelessness department, and the Indigenous Relations Office. So should those two departments at the city need legal support, I'm the person that they come to. And I'll leave it at that because I think we're going to get into some good stuff over the next little bit. How about you, Neesha?
So my name is Neesha Persad. I am currently an articling student here in Calgary over at Burnett, Duckworth & Palmer LLP. So I'm currently in private practice. I don't really have a specialty right now. As an articling student, we kind of pop around and do a lot of different things and get to explore different interest areas. But so far in my experience, I've been fairly involved in the community, both during law school, but also at the firm. So looking forward to jumping into that as well.
Awesome. And that's so exciting that you're both in different points of your careers, and we'll get to kind of hear more about that. So thank you so much for both of you for being here today and speaking to us. I guess we'll start off with the first question to learn more about your journeys. So what first inspired you to pursue this career?
I could take this one, and then Neesha, you can take the next one. I think I was someone who didn't know what I wanted to be my whole life, what my career or my end goal job was going to be, and I still think I am that person. But in that process, I think this law path ended up being so ideal because it's a career that doesn't mean that you have to be one specific job. So that's what I love about it. So how I kind of got into it, I did sciences undergrad. I did a chemistry major with a philosophy minor, and then that philosophy minor, I think I was learning just different ways to think, and it was new to me at that time. You're also in undergrad, you're really figuring out who you are you beyond as an adult, you're learning your personality, and I think philosophy paired with that time frame in my life really nicely. So I just started with Philosophy 101, loved it, went onwards to make it my minor, and I just loved learning how to see different perspectives every single time something comes up your way. And someone then at that time told me, you know what, this is very parallel to the law world. Why don't you consider that? And it was kind of just as simple as that. It wasn't like I was dreaming to be a lawyer, but I do think I am someone in my personal and professional life who just likes looking at things from different angles. And this job kind of lent myself to that. So I think the best part of law is that it still allows me the choice. If I want to continue this path, I still can. If there's something else, I still can. So maybe I'm just manifesting that little girl who didn't know what she wanted to be and continuing it on, and as we're going through this world.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing. And Neesha, do you have a perspective on that as well?
Yeah, similarly to Areezah, I also did not anticipate being in law. If you had asked me about 5 years ago, I would still be a high school teacher. And I personally, I started a career that I absolutely loved. I love education. And in my education career, I found gaps that I thought were something that I wanted to help contribute to. So I actually started a journey to look into a master's. That master's in public policy, actually, to try and help with policy change and helping organizations to do that. so that I can kind of team my interest in policy with my interest in education. That policy professor actually proceeded to tell me, I think you should do law and help work with organizations to help them build policy and infrastructure and understand it to a bit of a different level that you won't understand in a master's degree. And I was a little bit taken aback. I did not understand the legal profession to that level because, it's not an area that I had grown up with. I hadn't really looked into it before. Started looking into the programs and found one that focused on access to justice and policy, which was at the University of Saskatchewan, which is where I just finished my degree. And so within that, I actually went on my own journey of figuring out, was law the right path for me? Because, like I said, I loved my career. And so I think being able to go through that journey myself helped me really bridge my two interests together. I did that a lot in university. And I'm continuing to try and build that within the firm itself. The firm is very open to me bridging my interests together, which is really nice. So once I finish articling, I'll get to kind of flourish with that as well. But I think that similar to Areezah, we both kind of went in with an open mind to see what was law going to be and how are we going to navigate that. And to me, it's really taken me in a very unique path that I think I've really grown to love a lot. So hopefully that answers your question.
For sure, yeah. Thank you for sharing. And I know that you have an education background, and we'll probably get into the nuances of that and how that's added to your career in a lot of ways. I do want to understand, just from the perspective of being a woman in these fields, law has historically been dominated by men. Did you face any specific gender-based challenges when you were starting out, and how did you handle them? And maybe we can start with you, Neesha, in this one, and then go to Areezah.
Yeah. I honestly have not. And I want to kind of caveat that with, I think with me, a lot of people knew that I came out of a career that had a lot of movement and growth. And I came in with this very optimistic, very excited lens when I went into law school. And so I think in law school, I became a leader of such, not in terms of, being like in a formal leadership position, but I think just helping to facilitate a lot of growth, especially coming out of COVID. COVID-19 created a lot of issues within every educational institution, including law schools. And so having someone come in and just be very excited to help people learn, help facilitate that was very well received. And I'd actually say that was extremely well received at the firm as well. I am at a firm where a lot of the leadership is actually women. And so being a woman of color has actually just helped bring in my voice, if anything more, because people make sure that they're not missing something. And I'll use an example. This year, as an articling student, we don't actually, you don't get a lot of vacation because you're learning a lot. You're trying to go through the growth. And if you take a long break in that regard, it causes some learning gaps, and then you lose opportunities to kind of fully understand what's going on. And so I remember coming in, it was Diwali, which is a very important celebration in my culture. And I was feeling a little bit sad because, it's the first time, well, not the first time, but it's the first time I'm being celebrating Diwali, being so close to home, but not really home, if that makes sense, being away from my family. But they're only 2.5 hours away, so it felt a little bit strange. And I remember walking into the little gathering area, and they had a sign saying Happy Diwali, and they said take a candle to help you celebrate. And I was just like, wow, this is so nice. And I had a couple of lawyers and partners say, hey, we know that you celebrate. What are you doing to celebrate? I said, I don't know. My family is in Edmonton, and they usually do a big celebration. And they said, well, what are you doing here? Go home. And I was just like, are you serious? And they said, yeah, no, we want you to go home. In fact, we will go talk to your boss if you don't. Go home. And I got so many emails saying, Happy Diwali, I hope you enjoy the time with your family. And the amount of people who checked in with me, because it fell on a day that kind of fell into a weekend kind of thing. When I came back, the amount of people who said, oh, how was it? We want to hear all about it, was really nice and refreshing and just really well received. So I think I'm very lucky where I am, and I haven't experienced that in that regard. So
that makes sense. Thank you. Areezah?
I'm really glad you're having that optimistic experience. Not that I didn't, but I would say that, and I think maybe you may have felt this too, but are in a space of really good comfort and warmth. But I did find that when I was entering the law world, I didn't have people in the law world that I knew before. So you're kind of just already figuring out what's the best path. How do I navigate this law school thing? How do I navigate articling? How do I navigate the working world? And I did find that because it is male dominated and the added aspect of white male dominated, that being a female and a colored female, you automatically just feel, even if it's true or not true, you feel steps behind, because these people have, both their parents are lawyers, or they have like their family friends that they grew up with are sitting members of the bench. So I would say that sometimes it's a mind game, but it also is a little bit true that you're in these spaces where there's men and white men who know a lot about the world that you're trying to enter into. And so you're just trying to keep up with someone who's already what feels like steps ahead. So it's kind of just, you feel it, so then you try to work really hard, and then you do meet a lot of great people on the way, like Neesha was saying, that help bring you along on their ride, and they welcome you, they teach you, and you're able to grow. But I don't think it takes away the like mental impact that plays on you when you're in a space where you're frequently the youngest person and definitely one of the only colored people, and then also being a female on top of that. So it's a weird dynamic to navigate, and then you do just gravitate towards people who are uplifting you, like Neesha was experiencing. But it's you have to kind of play with your own thoughts as well about, okay, well, I am in this space. There are people who know more. How do I get myself to a place where I'm equal, if not now, like my trajectory is beyond that. And it's something you just have to keep in mind. And maybe it's a fueling mechanism because you're never caught not trying.
Yeah, and I think that almost like, I think about like imposter syndrome as well when you kind of speak of those things. So that's very important. Also, kind of from what you said, I think about representation in law. So I want to get both of your perspectives on that. Can you kind of speak to why it's important to have women and gender diverse individuals in leadership and decision-making roles within the legal field?
For sure, I can start with this one. It's very important. I remember, because similarly, like I didn't have parents who were lawyers or family members who were judges or whatnot. So really your connection to where you want to move your career is, okay, what seems familiar? What is something that I can grasp to a little bit? So I wasn't someone who knew a bunch of law firms. So my threshold kind of when I was seeing job offers, I was like, okay, well, what does their partnership structure look like? Do they have no female partners? And a lot of the times that is the case. And sometimes your threshold was, well, they have one female partner out of 10. And you're like, okay, great. We're seeing a great option here. But I think as I was able to kind of navigate law school and you're navigating job offers and articling positions and all that, I was able to find a place that had multiple female partners. And that was kind of my only threshold. I didn't know what a good firm or a bad firm or what's known to be a notable firm or not. And I kind of just went with, okay, well, do they respect the women that are currently in their firms, and are they valuing them to the point of putting them in leadership positions? And I think that was solely like, why is representation important? Is because that was the only touch point I had with these law firms is, does someone look like me? And they didn't look like me, but they were female. So that is one step closer. So I think that's why it's really important. Someone who doesn't have a touch point can relate to those certain things. And I think as you get further along, you're often finding yourself with people who are aligned with your like self-worth, like people who carry you along on that path, who want to put you up on a pedestal. And even right now, I'll toot the horn of the city of Edmonton. We have a female city solicitor. That is the biggest role that a lawyer could have at the city, and it's held by a woman. Like, that is enormous, and it's awesome to see that. Then beyond that, we have a huge ally who's our deputy city solicitor. We have a bunch of supervisors, and our director of solicitor is a female, and our supervisors are female. We have people in leadership positions who value women because they are women. They value gender diverse perspectives because they are people who understand these other aspects of diversity beyond just like white male. And when you're surrounded by people like that, people are learning and people are getting more exposed to what value different type of people bring to different circumstances. And I think that that's so critical. And even me, like, even though I'm a little bit into my career, I can see why I would want to continue at a place that values that. So even like, it's not just when you're picking the initial job offer, when you're articling, it's beyond that when you're looking at where am I progressing my career, how do I want to progress my career, who do I want to do that with, and all of that comes to why representation is important.
Absolutely. I think that was a power-packed answer, and that makes so much sense. I think that's so important to even be able to see that like familiar face and know that this person would understand my perspective better than a lot of others. So thank you for sharing. Neesha, do you have a perspective on that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I kind of echo everything that Areezah just said. I think that I agree with you. That was a very power-packed answer for sure. I think also coming from a place where I didn't have lawyers in my life very much. I mean, I have one aunt, but she's in an area that's very different. That was an area that I didn't really want to practice. It's a very different structure, but I would say that looking at who I was chatting with during like the recruitment process, for example, was very important, and what those leadership positions held. And I kind of alluded to it earlier, but in a private practice, the managing partner and the partnership structure is kind of what you look at. And I thought it was very unique to be jumping into a firm where the managing partner is a female who's very big on empowering and like bringing in the students to a large level, to bringing in the female voice as well. I think that seeing that and seeing that there is opportunity at the firm to move up in leadership and not necessarily being afraid to ask about that at the get-go was really helpful in helping to ensure that, you know, that there is a viable future for females ahead. But also just, I think as a woman of color as well, like when Areezah was talking, I was like, wow, I never even thought about some of those perspectives, because I want to caveat my answers with the fact that I am very new into the field. And so some of the impacts and the what we see in terms of influences on the field from like long legacies of not this field being male dominated, I don't necessarily think I would see quite yet as an articling student. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was kind of like a piece there, so that as a woman, I'm looking at who is in the leadership positions, but I don't necessarily feel the impacts of the male dominance because I'm not at that phase in my career yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that even addressing that you are in a place where you're still newer in the field and that things may change and you might even develop a new perspective on it is very important. So thank you for sharing that. I have a specific question for you. So as someone who transitioned from teaching to law, and I know you want to incorporate both kind of elements together, how has your background in education and leadership influenced your perspective in equity and inclusion, especially even in the legal field?
I think it's been very well received, to be completely honest. I think for the fact that I'm coming in from an education background, even from day one of law school, was, oh my gosh, this girl seems like she's eager. And like the reason I say that is one of the people who made the admission decisions, I didn't actually think they would they'd remember my application. They met me during first year orientation, and I introduced myself as hi, I'm Neesha. And they said, oh my gosh, you're Neesha, you're the teacher. And I said, yeah, I am the teacher. And they said, I can imagine you're going to do great things. And I remember at grad, they said, and I wasn't wrong. I was just like, so I think education as a whole has been well received in law school. It's also been very well received at the firm, because I know that there are people who do like more education specific law, and they have come and taken me under their wing. They've tried to find opportunities. They know how much community involvement is important to me as well. And so helping me find opportunities where I can, jump into community involvement, both in a pro bono sense, but also in student mentorship and that kind of thing, has been well received. But I do think that in that regard, at least at the firm that I'm at, and that might mask my experience a little bit too, is that I think the legal world is trying to change to make itself more open to different opportunity, not just with diversity in gender inclusion and diversity in people of color, but I think also in experience as well. Just because in my cohort, there's very, very few people who took the traditional kind of, law school straight to law school straight to an undergrad, straight into law school or that kind of thing. They're looking a lot for work experience and that kind of stuff to help with perspective. So I think that has been really interesting to see. That being said, I do think it's about how you utilize your education degree. In my experience, I knew that I loved education, so I utilized it everywhere that I could, and I tried to showcase the incredible work that's being done there as well. I can think back to the number of things that one of my colleagues that I think all of us know does, and trying to use the things that he did in his practice as a new teacher and a new department head and a new assistant principal to help, shift his field. I tried to kind of almost take that as my motivator as well, to help me try and bring growth and change where I am. So to answer your question simply, it's very much helped, and I think very much appreciated in the field for sure.
And I know that you also kind of spoke about this evolving nature of law as well. So I guess I kind of want to speak about that for a little bit too. So have you seen, and I know that you have, but kind of how as well. So have you seen the legal profession evolve when it comes to gender equity? And where do you think we're making progress, and where are we falling short? And maybe Areezah can start us off for this one.
Yeah, for sure. This one's really hard for me to answer because I don't want to say no that we haven't evolved, but I also don't want to say yes. So I'm kind of toying between, okay, have we not? And I've only been in this post graduation. It's only been 7 years. So that's not a long time in relation to the grand scheme of the legal profession as a whole. So in that large scheme, it doesn't feel like much has happened, but on a day-to-day, maybe there has been. And I think a large aspect of that is that as I was going through my career and I was navigating, finding how I want my career to go, you're also being surrounded by people. You get to choose a little bit, who you're surrounding yourself with and the volunteering that you're exposing yourself to. And I think on a minute level, we're seeing so much little changes that hopefully maybe once I'm at this practice for a decade, so in a few more years, or once you're looking back at your whole career, we're wow, there really has been such a difference. But I think where I see it the most is in my volunteer spaces. There's these groups who tend to, the whole purpose is to create collegiality between women and gender diverse lawyers who just need a space to flourish. And these groups, so they've flourished themselves so much that everyone is wanting to be a part of it. Everyone wants to, every year there's award ceremonies for it. And when you're in those spaces, you feel so motivated and so loved by everyone around you that you kind of forget that you're in this world of gender inequity. So I think as you get more into your career, you're exposing yourself more to different networks. Those people who have similar mindsets to you are finding you and you're finding them. And it's people like you, Jasmine, who are on these committees who are putting more people together, and you really get to see the progress on a day-to-day level. So I guess it's a little unfair of me to say that no, I don't see it evolving, but I guess the caveat of that is when I do talk to new graduates and they're experiencing certain things, they're very similar to things I've experienced and very similar to the things that maybe lawyers before me had experienced. So I think we see change, but not everywhere and all at once, but slow increments. And it's really about how you find, how you surround yourself. And if you're, I think a great piece is that if you're not finding that you're with the people who are supporting you, it's okay to just not want to be there. you can choose. You can choose. And I think maybe we don't think we have that ability. Just choose. You can find a new volunteer group who's supporting you and uplifting you and making you feel like you can literally do anything. So I think there is some evolution. There's still a long way to go, because I do hope that no one ever, like, I hope we get to a point where we never have to have a podcast like this, because it's just so normalized that there are colored, female, and gender diverse lawyers in the city doing great things. And people are already valuing that without it needing to be in a specified space.
Thank you for sharing. Neesha?
Yeah, no, I agree with Areezah, actually. I think one thing that the more we go into the podcast, I think one thing that I notice within a lot of the female individuals that I know who I went to law school with, who are years ahead of me as well, was this concept of imposter syndrome. And I think that for that reason, I think inherently we feel this need to keep things moving, and I think sometimes it can be debilitating, and sometimes it can be very motivating. And I think that was just one thing I wanted to kind of caveat my answer with, is that as a new lawyer, sometimes we experience imposter syndrome to a point where, you're trying to learn, you're trying to move forward and help make and be part of that change, but sometimes you don't know what that change is, or you overthink that change. And so with that said, I would say that there has been, like, evolving in the legal field. I do think that it's baby steps, and I think in some places it's more so than others. Like Areezah said, I'm very lucky that I found a place that's very, very much on the, we need to have diversity, we need to be authentically bringing that into the firm. That is something that the firm very much stands with in all aspects, not just at the legal level, like at the lawyer level, but also at the paralegals, assistants, everything, and everybody's pulled into that. That could be very unique to my firm compared to a friend of mine who's at a firm where that is not the case, and there is still very few females in the partnership level and in the committees that are helping to make change and such. And so that, with all of that, I think, and the reason why I brought in imposter syndrome, I think, is because a lot of people who are women of color are coming into this field new. They don't have the backgrounds from their parents. They don't have the backgrounds from their friend groups and that kind of stuff, where, having all this, like, these experiences is unfortunately just a first time experience, and we don't really know what to compare it to. And so as someone who is coming in kind of fresh, who is coming in from a different province too, as well, where there was a lot of emphasis put on having lots of diversity, lots of inclusion initiatives within my school experience as well. And even seeing it in the legal field within Saskatchewan. Like, there is a firm that I can think of right now. I have a friend at it. She loves it because it's entirely around women of color, women of diverse experience, to be able to respond to the needs within the community. And it's a very known, very well-respected, very successful firm, again, responding to what those students graduated from and seeing in their community. They said, well, why don't we just fix it? And so there's been a couple more firms like that. So I do want to caveat saying that I think my law school experience is coming out of a lot of multiple lenses and multiple province-wide lenses as well, where that change is being seen, especially at a level, especially in Saskatchewan, where it's a smaller community, where you're seeing a lot more of that happen more rapidly because of how small the community is, versus in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Alberta as a whole. There's a lot of different communities that are coming in trying to make changes, and sometimes that can make it seem like it's very small, and sometimes it is, and sometimes that same change that could apply in one community doesn't necessarily work as successfully in another, right? Like, for example, in my experience in Saskatchewan, because, like, as I quoted, big firms were not as much of a big emphasis in Saskatchewan, you didn't have to worry too much about, what firm you went to. There was a lot of different full service. They all kind of worked together. In Alberta, it seems that is a bit more of an emphasis. It's a little bit more like the Toronto and BC vibe, where, if you're coming you're coming in, you're starting up a brand new practice, you don't know whether it's going to be successful or not. And so I think as all of these big firms and medium-sized firms and all the other firms work together to try and make baby steps, they're working kind of in silos compared to the community working as a whole. And I think that's where a lot of the movement needs to shift, is working together to kind of make things as a group sustainable, as a whole, as a community sustainable, versus just like, you know, this firm is doing a great job at this. Well, that's great for those people at that firm. But what about the person across the road who's maybe not in that situation because they're not moving at the same pace? So it's my very long-winded way of saying I think there has been movement. I just think that it hasn't necessarily been done in the most efficient way. And in that regard, it's kind of put us backwards in some ways as well. I think pro bono is a great opportunity to also bring forward some of the gender inequity issues that we see as well. Like, I know that in Saskatchewan, that was a focus in some of the projects that we had. And so I echo a lot of what Areezah said, which is your passion for things is not limited to, again, the four corners of your firm or your employment. And in fact, I think for both of us, we're very, very involved in the community at large in other respects as well. And in some places, I'm sure they'll interconnect at some point now that I'm starting to enter into the field. But I do think that it keeps you very grounded as well. I think the second that you stop volunteering and stop working with people who are not in the field, we put ourselves at a great disservice. And I think that we stop seeing some of the issues that exist in the community that we're supposed to be responding to. So I think that volunteerism and community involvement are ways that keep us connected to the community around us so that we can keep being responsive and never be stagnant. So
thank you, both of you, for kind of giving your perspectives on a lot of different things today. And I guess I'll ask you one main question before we say goodbye. But what advice would you give to women or gender diverse individuals looking to enter the legal profession today?
This is another hard one. I was trying to think of what are some nuggets of info that I would have loved to hear. But even when you do hear it, sometimes you just have to experience it yourself to then look back and be like, oh, that's what they meant when they said that. But I think when it comes to women and being a woman of color, and you know, Neesha would resonate with this, is you're just going to work really hard. And there's no way around that. So just put your mind to it, continue to do it, but you've been doing it your whole life anyway, so nothing new there. Sometimes you'll slip up, and that's fine, and sometimes you'll thrive beyond what you thought in the first place. So it's just a matter of keep going, and I feel like I'm a broken record when it comes to this, but you'll find people who are aligned with your values. So get out there, try to meet those people, awkwardly send those cold emails, even though you might feel so strange doing it. The receiving end is very open to connecting, and if there's someone who is aligned with your passions, they're going to be as excited as you are to connect with you. So my advice is just keep reaching out to people, keep finding those networks, and also realizing that as you're going through this profession, what works for you early in your profession might not work midway through, and it might not work later on, and that's fine. And sometimes it works wonderfully. You'll see people who are at the same firm their whole life and they love it. You'll see people who are hopping around and they love it. And I think knowing that your journey is going to be different as you grow yourself and as your passions are realigning with what's new in your life and how you're navigating all of that. So just don't hesitate to go with the flow, and if you're in a position where you're not absolutely loving it, that's okay. You'll find it outside of the four walls, like Neesha said, or you'll find it inside. You just need to make those connections, give everything its due time, and soon you'll, I imagine, find a way. And I hope, even for myself, I'm still early in my career, so I hope to equally keep doing this as I'm connecting with new people and just ensuring that there's a dynamic component to your career, I think is a nice way, because I thought that where you got your first job is where you are going to retire. But I think we're in a different stage right now. That doesn't have to be the case. It can be. It doesn't have to be. You might not even have to be a lawyer at the end of the day with your legal degree. It's so valuable. So just keep an open mind. Stay flexible and keep going, and reach out to people, and they'll reach out to you because you're doing awesome work. So that's what I say. Oh, and then also I think take your vacation. You'll never regret taking your vacation.
I agree with that last one for sure. I agree with all of them, but I think for sure the vacation piece too. I've been told that many times. Okay, so I would break my answer down, I think, into 3 pieces. The first is don't be afraid to go out of your comfort zone. I think that oftentimes we're already working hard and we're growing, but I think when you can show that resilience of, going out of your comfort zone, whether it's in law school or whether it's at the firm or whether it's outside of the firm and starting your own thing, I think just be susceptible to growth. I think that's a huge thing, and it'll serve you very well, I think, through the field, and I think it'll help you build resilience. As the profession is a very demanding one. But it has a lot of opportunity for reward and growth and all that stuff. So I'd say don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone as the first one. The second one is kind of a confusing answer because it's seek mentorship. But I don't mean seeking mentorship as in going to every single person that you talk to as your mentor. I mean, go and make connections with everybody, make those friendships, but when you find that mentorship, don't be afraid to keep with it. I can think back to my summer experience, because I had the opportunity to summer at my firm. And I have this one mentor who's actually just been announced a partner. She is amazing. And she took me completely under her wing, and she helped me grow as an individual, not just at the firm, but also just as a person. And I think when you can get that type of mentorship at your workplace, and I can think of numerous people outside of work who have done that as well, you only get that opportunity when you've kind of had a chance to connect and build those relationships. So while I say seek mentorship, I also really focus on the fact that you should build meaningful relationships wherever you go. And so that would be the second. The third one is, I think it's very easy to get lost when you jump into a field that has so many opportunities. And so while being open to flexibility, because it will change as you go, and Areezah kind of talked about this a little bit too, is find something that motivates you and keeps you going, and use that to motivate you through your career. Like for me, my motivation is often, and I said this actually at an awards ceremony the other day, is my students actually motivate me. My students who I have been lucky to have, including you, Jasmine, I have seen immense growth in every single one of them. And some of them have been very lucky to keep in touch with. And so my students and my mentors in teaching have continued to be a huge impact in my life. And I think that is what keeps me going every day. Sometimes even through the hard days, is, you know what, we all got to do this. We've got to do this to help make the community a better place often for them. And so I think find that thing that keeps you fueled, and that will make every day a good day, even through the hard ones. So those are my piece of advice for people coming into the field and just in general as well.
And add something, because Neesha made me think about it, and it's because she's emulating this really well, is not to dim your diversity. Her background with teaching, her BIPOC background, the fact that she's a female, is why she's doing so well in her role. It's why people are seeing value in her work, is because she's not trying to dim herself. And I think a lot of us need that reminder. Be who you are. Don't dim your diversity, because otherwise no one's going to get to see the light that you're shining.
I think, to add on to what Areezah said, I think that's why law school was very open to what I was saying, is because my answers would always be, here's a suggestion and let me help you apply it. And it was apparently very refreshing. And this is the same thing at the firm. I had an idea during my summer. I said, here's an idea. I think it would help students. Here are all the plans for it. Let me know if you need help, kind of thing. And I think just being able to step in without being pushy, because I think that there's a fine balance, but I think just being able to say, hey, here is this experience I came with. It's worked before. Let's apply it somewhere else has been really helpful. And I think also having, it's in the phase of time where first years are starting to apply to law firms. I've had a chance to talk to a lot of students, and apparently just feeling, they apparently felt the compassion that I have, but also just the excitement. And I think that would be, I guess, the fourth thing is just be excited about what you do. Because I can see it in Areezah. In fact, when I was looking at doing law, I talked to Areezah because I heard about her experience, and it kind of contributed to some of why I wanted to jump in as well. Both the positive and the negative, right? So be excited about what you do. But anyways.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think both of you said things that I feel like I needed to hear today. So thank you for that. And knowing both of you in your unique places of journey, I know that you both are very, very passionate and excited about what you do. So thank you for being as passionate as you are. Our conversation today highlighted the growing impact of women and gender diverse individuals in the legal profession. Their courage to speak up and lead change is paving the way for future generations. So thank you so much for being here today and speaking to us today. Thanks for listening, and remember, equity is a continuous journey, always in motion.